On a foggy February night in 2001, the peace in the quiet town of Novi Ligure, Italy, was shattered. At around 9 p.m., a 16-year-old girl appeared barefoot and drenched in blood, stumbling down a residential street and screaming for help. Behind her, inside the family home, lay a scene so brutal it would shock an entire nation. What began as a story of survival quickly spiraled into one of Italy's most disturbing crimes, the Novi Ligure Massacre. And as it turned out, the truth was something far closer to home, with the real horror being the secret the girl was hiding. Please make sure you're subscribed to my channel, you like this video, and you let me know where you're listening from in the comments. Now, let's lift the thin veil. February 21st, 2001, around 9 p.m. in Novi Ligure, in the Piedmont region of northern Italy. Population about 26,000. A town known for peace, prosperity, and the famous Pernigauti chocolate factory. Not really known for violence. But on that cold, foggy night, everything changed. 16-year-old Erica De Nardo, seen running down a small street. She was barefoot, bloodied, and screaming for help. Eventually, neighbors rushed out, gave her shoes and a blanket, and called the carabinieri, which is the police, immediately. When officers arrived and entered the De Nardo home, where lived Francesco, the father, Susanna, the mother, who went by Susie, Erica, and her 11-year-old brother, Gianluca, they were met with a scene one officer described as a slaughterhouse. Erica, who was with the officers, identified each of the bloodied victims. The kitchen was a bloodbath, and there they found the lifeless body of Susie Cassini, Erica's mother. The solid wood dining table was overturned and splintered, a sign of a brutal struggle in which Susie had fought hard for her life. Multiple knives, all stained with blood, lay scattered on the floor. It was violence unlike most of the officers had seen before. She had been stabbed 40 times, mostly in the stomach. Susie was 41 and had been an accountant before she left her job to raise her children. She was known for her deep religious faith, teaching catechism, volunteering, and devoting herself entirely to her family. Police followed the trail of blood upstairs, where the horror continued. In the bathroom, submerged in the bathtub, was 11-year-old Gianluca De Nardo. He had been stabbed 57 times. At the bottom of the stairs leading up to that bathroom, officers noticed something unusual, a strange blue powder scattered on the floor. At first, its significance was unknown, but it would prove to be an important detail. It soon emerged that besides Erica, another member of the family was safe. Francesco De Nardo, the father. He returned home from a soccer game completely unaware of what had happened. He walked straight into the nightmare as the police were carrying out their investigation. The shock rippled through the family, the police, the town, and soon, the entire country. Once the scene was secured, investigators turned to the only witness, the sole survivor, and the person who had reported the terrible tragedy, Erica. Her account was dramatic and vivid. She claimed that 2, maybe even 4, men, possibly Albanian, had broken into the house through the garage. She said it seemed like they had intended to rob the house. She described them in detail, one older, with a white beard, the other younger, with what she called evil eyes. They attacked her brother first, she claimed, then her mother, while she somehow managed to escape. Her story landed in the middle of an already tense climate in Italy. At the time, there was widespread fear and prejudice towards immigrant communities, especially Albanians. Crimes were often inaccurately blamed on them, and Erica's account poured fuel on that fire. Fear, xenophobia, and outright racism erupted across the country. The media seized on the story, newspapers called for crackdowns, protests broke out, and angry voices accused local leaders of failing to protect them. Panic and hostility swept through the streets. People wanted answers. More than that, they wanted someone to blame. Police leaned on that lead. They focused on the Albanian angle, even detaining a young Albanian man. Erica picked him out of a lineup of mugshots, insisting she was certain he was the younger attacker, the one with the evil eyes. For a brief moment, it seemed like they had their man. The public wanted the arrest to stick, but the case against him fell flat quite fast. The man Erica had identified had an alibi. He'd been bowling that night with 20 other people, all of whom confirmed his presence. And there was another problem. Erica claimed she had struck one of the attackers with a heavy whiskey bottle. This man that she picked out had no injuries whatsoever. He was released quickly, and the wrongful accusation of this man planted the first real seeds of doubt about Erica's story. The police became a little suspicious about Erica's witness statement, and this is because of the inconsistencies in her story. Some of the details that didn't quite line up with her account. First, the forensics. Erica said the attackers broke in through the garage, but there were zero signs of forced entry. Doors, windows, the garage door, everything was intact. Then there was the so-called robbery itself. Nothing valuable had been taken. Cash, jewelry, electronics, all untouched in this affluent home. For thieves, the level of violence made no sense. Nearly 100 stab wounds combined. And then they just left empty-handed? It didn't add up. Then there were the dogs, Stella and Holly. They were known for barking at anything and everything and trained as guard dogs. But that night, silence. Not a single neighbor said they'd heard dogs barking, even during what must have been absolute chaos inside the house. Tests confirmed they hadn't been drugged. The only explanation was that the intruders were people the dogs knew. People they wouldn't bark at. The timing was odd too. Around 8:30 p.m., not when home invasions usually happen. Those tend to occur in the daytime when residents are out, or much later into the night when people are asleep and more vulnerable. Beyond the physical evidence, Erica's behavior started raising eyebrows. Investigators noted her composure, her crystal-clear demeanor, even while describing the brutal murder of her mother and brother. It earned her a nickname, the Ice Woman. Initially, it was given to her in admiration of how she seemed to be staying strong through what would be a very difficult time for most people. But after a while, for someone who had supposedly just witnessed her family being slaughtered, the lack of visible distress felt wrong and suspicious. Her escape route was also another puzzle. She claimed she fled through the garage, but given the layout of the house, it was a longer, more difficult way out compared to simply using the front door. Why take the harder route if you were running for your life? What I personally find the most creepy is that forensic analysis of her bloody footprints in the garage showed she'd been walking slowly and calmly, flat-footed, with even-spaced steps, not the frantic uneven prints you'd expect from someone fleeing a massacre. And then came the neighbors' accounts. They reported hearing nothing. No screams, no sounds of a struggle from inside until Erica emerged onto the street, screaming for help. That directly contradicted her claim that she'd heard her mother and brother screaming during the attack. The silence before Erica's screams was a glaring inconsistency. It suggested the violence had either been contained or that the screams she described never happened at all. The Albanian intruders theory died as the inconsistencies piled up, and investigators had to rethink everything. They did look briefly at the father, Francesco. After all, he'd been out playing soccer that night, conveniently absent, and exactly the next day, he made a request to transfer Susie's bank account and asked that no autopsy be performed on Gianluca, the reasons for which remain unknown to this day. Strange behavior perhaps, but grief can make people act in unexpected ways. In the end, Francesco was cleared quickly. His alibi was airtight, backed by multiple witnesses. Everyone who saw him agreed his grief was genuine. He didn't seem to have a motive either. So if it wasn't a random robbery, and it wasn't the father, that left only one possibility. The killer, or killers, had to be someone the family knew. Someone who could walk in without forcing entry, without alarming the dogs, without raising suspicion. That's when suspicion shifted, uncomfortably close, to the person who reported the crime, Erica, and also to her boyfriend, Omar Favaro, who was 17 at the time. Investigators noted that Erica had called Omar right before the police arrived around 9 p.m., and he showed up quickly, supposedly to comfort her. There had been no calls between them during the murder window, but there was one the next day. An intercepted conversation where Erica sounded eerily calm while Omar was clearly agitated and nervous. There isn't a lot of information about what was said in the call, but apparently, Erica told Omar, "It's going to be okay. You don't have to worry. Relax. They won't arrest us." That was enough for police to set a trap. 2 days after the murders, on February the 23rd, they called Erica and Omar back in, officially as, quote, helpful citizens, unquote, still assisting with the investigation. In reality, the interrogation room they were placed in was wired with hidden cameras and microphones. Investigators sat next door, watching, listening, and waiting. Before the interrogation began, they put them together in the room for a while, and what they captured was pretty damning. Omar was a mess, pacing, anxious, terrified they were about to be caught, muttering about spending his life in prison. Erica, in stark contrast, was calm, ice-cold, lucid, almost decisive. She kept telling him to relax, to chill out. Omar worried about the composite sketch she'd given the police, saying it looked too much like him. Erica brushed it off. She told him, "Don't worry, it's done now. We'll make it through. They won't discover us." Because she had no clue how far the investigation had come along, she said that the Albanian person she had pointed out was being suspected and that she had dealt with it. While the exact conversation in the interrogation room isn't available, and I've gathered most of this from Italian newspapers, it was there, in her own words, where she admitted to fabricating the story about the Albanian intruders. Then Erica went further. She said if things got really bad, they could just run away, already planning escape routes. And then she mentioned her father, telling Omar, "We just have to be careful with my father. He might have figured something out." So in just one conversation, she had admitted her role, revealed the lie, and voiced concern that her own father might see through it all. But the part that truly stopped me cold came when Omar asked Erica if Gianluca had suffered. Her answer was flat, almost casual. "Yes, a lot. Then he's gone." And then she said, "Omar, he was dead. Relax. They have no evidence it was us. They can't say anything." It was devoid of any feelings, chilling pragmatism, no hint of remorse, and especially when you consider the fact that it was her own brother she was talking about. Omar worried about DNA evidence, but Erica brushed it off with misplaced confidence. Quote, "No, they can't. If your DNA is mixed with my brother's DNA, another DNA comes out. I'm not stupid or naive. Trust me, everything's fine." Unquote. That's not how DNA works, of course, but it showed her belief that she could outsmart everyone. She even reassured him that if he were prosecuted, she was the only witness and would keep saying it wasn't him. She was convinced she could control the narrative entirely. Then came the cherry on top for the investigators. Omar finally cracked under the weight of it all. "Erica, admit it. You don't understand. This isn't a game. It's a life sentence. 2 people are dead. Do you realize what we've done?" And Erica simply replied, "I'd do it all over again." And then she asked Omar, "You didn't have fun?" Erica and Omar didn't stop at just talking. The recording caught them kissing and being physically affectionate, teasing each other by calling one another assassin. At one point, Erica even mimed stabbing her own mother in the stomach, reenacting the murder. Then she said, "Now that everyone knows about us, we can walk proudly in town as an official couple." With what was essentially considered a confession, the mask was off. Both were arrested and had a lot of their belongings seized. Police could finally reconstruct what had really happened that night, and it was clear this wasn't some spur-of-the-moment attack. It had been planned, meticulously, for months. And they found this out by going through text messages between them and Erica's diary entries. Evidence showed Erica and Omar had been plotting the murders for a long time. Their first idea wasn't knives at all. It was rat poison, and that's what the strange blue powder found at the scene was. They eventually abandoned the rat poison idea when they realized it would be a real struggle to make them swallow it. So they opted instead for knives, a far more direct approach. At around 7 p.m., they were already inside the house, waiting, wearing disposable gloves. Erica unplugged the phones and turned the radio up loud to mask any sounds. Omar hid in the garage, while Erica waited in the kitchen. At around 8:15 p.m., Susie and Gianluca returned from basketball practice, completely unaware of the trap they were walking into. Erica attacked Susie immediately in the hallway, before she'd even had the time to take off her coat. Her mother fought back, fleeing into the kitchen. That's where the true massacre began. Omar joined Erica only after she reminded him to put on his gloves. Maybe a sign of hesitation, but he still took part. They attacked relentlessly. Susie fought with everything she had. Her last words were desperate pleas. "Please, Erica, what are you doing? Why? I forgive you. Omar, I want to live." She begged them to spare Gianluca at least. Despite Susie's dying pleas, they finished her off and then turned on Gianluca. Hearing his mother's screams, the 11-year-old came halfway down the stairs and saw what was happening. He shouted for Erica to stop, but Erica ignored him. Ignored her mother's last wish. She chased him upstairs as he ran in terror, leaving bloody handprints and footprints in her path, through the living room, into her bedroom, and finally, into the bathroom. And there, the attack continued. In the bathroom, the horror only deepened. Erica tried to force Gianluca to swallowing the rat poison. When that failed, the couple tried to drown him in the tub. He fought back fiercely, biting Omar's hand hard enough to leave a wound. That bite would later become crucial DNA evidence. Then came the ultimate betrayal. At one point, Gianluca managed to grab the knife. He pleaded with them to stop. Erica pretended to give in, promising to help him. She convinced him to hand the knife back, and he trusted her, his own sister. The moment he did, she resumed stabbing him, mercilessly, 57 times. He died screaming for his father, while the loud music Erica had turned on still played. But his father wouldn't be home to save him. After killing Gianluca, the couple was exhausted. They made a departure from their original plan. They had intended to wait for Francesco as well, when he got home, and kill him too. But Omar later backed out, claiming he was too exhausted, saying he couldn't go through with it anymore, and that he was too tired to get into a struggle with a man. They attempted a cleanup, but it was sloppy. They wiped away some blood, but Luminol later revealed the full extent of the scene. They washed the knives, leaving one near Susie's body, and the other, along with their gloves, in the trash. Around 8:45 p.m., Omar left on a scooter. Erica then staged her escape. She deliberately walked through her mother's blood in the garage to create the look of a fleeing victim, then ran into the street screaming for help. The final act in her carefully staged but horrifying play. The sheer brutality of the murders begged the question, why? What could drive two teenagers to do something so monstrous? To understand that, investigators looked at their relationships. Erica and Susie's relationship had become increasingly strained as Erica got into her mid-teens. Susie worried constantly about her daughter, her schoolwork, and especially her relationship with Omar. And that's because Erica's grades had dropped sharply. She was skipping school and had started using drugs, marijuana and cocaine specifically. She was possibly even high on the night of the murders. Erica's diaries revealed a deep, simmering resentment, particularly towards her mother. Erica saw her as strict and controlling, someone who set curfews and forbade her from seeing Omar. She hated it. She also believed her younger brother was the favorite child. In her writings, she noted bitterly, "Of course, Mommy defended him. They always favor him." And then towards the end of one of her last entries came the most chilling line of all, a sentence that, in hindsight, was foreshadowing. "This situation needs to end." Erica and Omar had only met in October 2000, just 4 to 5 months before the murders. The relationship had escalated quickly. Friends said they'd become inseparable, shutting out everyone else, consumed entirely by each other. It was described as toxic. Susie strongly disapproved of Omar. His reputation within the community wasn't great, from small things like smoking to other minor troubles like other forms of drugs, and this disapproval of Omar only deepened Erica's resentment, creating a vicious cycle that pushed mother and daughter further apart. Erica and Omar were arrested shortly after the interrogation room reveal, and due to their young ages, they were ordered to go through mandatory psychiatric evaluations. Erica emerged as the dominant partner, manipulative, decisive, cold, a habitual liar. She even made accusations about Omar and his family, claiming his father sold cocaine and that Omar had threatened to sexually assault her. The investigators found no truth in any of it and attributed her stories to her diagnosis. The psychologist said Erica showed traits consistent with narcissistic personality disorder, grandiosity, a need for admiration, and most importantly, a profound lack of empathy. Omar, on the other hand, was diagnosed with dependent personality disorder, an excessive need to be cared for, submissiveness, and a deep fear of abandonment. He was repeatedly described as a follower, even Erica's puppet, willing to do whatever she told him. His lawyers argued that he'd been coerced, pressured by Erica, with lines like, "If you loved me, you would help me do this." It played directly into his dependency, his need for her approval. Their relationship dynamic was described as a perfect storm, which left victims in its wake. It wasn't just that Erica and Omar each had their own issues, it was how their specific pathologies fed into and amplified each other. Alone, they might have never killed. Together, they became capable of murder. Despite the psychiatric findings and the toxic dynamic, both were declared legally sane. Judges and experts agreed they had known exactly what they were doing. They understood their actions when they committed the murders. The defense of mental infirmity was rejected outright. They were fully responsible. As for motive, it remained elusive. Beyond the family tension, Erica's deep resentment and their toxic bond was no specific reason that explained why they carried out the crimes in such a violent manner. Not that I encourage anyone to try this at home, but they could have simply poisoned them, which they did plan initially. Then they decided to take a much more violent approach, which led people to think that perhaps the violence itself was the reason for the crime. The legal process that followed spared no drama. The moment they were separated, the couple turned on each other. Erica blamed Omar entirely, claiming he did everything, locked her in the bathroom, and forced her to stab her mother and brother. Omar at first denied everything, then he confessed, but shifted the blame back onto Erica, calling her the mastermind who had manipulated and pressured him. Both were desperate to minimize their own roles, but the evidence was overwhelming. There was the taped confession, the gloves, Omar's DNA in one, Erica's in the other, directly linking them to the scene. And a witness had also turned up, saying he saw Omar in bloody clothes leaving the house around the time of the crime. Gianluca's skin under Erica's fingernails, proof of his fight against her. Forensic evidence showed the knife Erica used was linked to both victims. Omar's knife, on the other hand, was only linked to Susie. The left-handed stab wounds on Susie were a match for Erica, proving they were both active participants, but Erica played the major role in Gianluca's murder. Faced with such damning evidence, they chose an abbreviated trial, which is a non-public trial in Italy where the defendants accept that conviction is inevitable and plead in hopes of a reduced sentence, up to 1/3 shorter, by avoiding a full public trial. It's a common route when the accused feel the evidence is stacked against them. The verdict came in December 2001, 9 months after the murders. Judge Tomicelli reviewed all the evidence and psychiatric reports before finding both guilty of premeditated murder. Erica was sentenced to 16 years, Omar to 14. His slightly shorter sentence credited partly due to limited cooperation. They both tried to appeal their sentences, but both were ultimately upheld. Despite all the evidence, a strange culture formed around people taking Erica's side. A website was even set up in support of her during her pre-trial detention, but the Italian Justice Ministry quickly shut it down. In Italy, juvenile prisons focus heavily on rehabilitation, and both Erica and Omar first served time in juvenile facilities, receiving education and therapy before transferring to adult prisons at 21. Erica was released in 2011 after serving nearly 11 years, her freedom granted for good behavior. While in prison, she earned a philosophy degree with a thesis on Socrates. After release, she lived in a community for former inmates, volunteered, eventually married a musician, started a family, and today, she works a job and lives an everyday life, and maintains regular contact with her father. This was the most mind-boggling part of this crime. Her father seems to have forgiven her, even supported her throughout the entire process. His loyalty has never wavered. During the trials and her time in prison, he visited Erica weekly, hired the best lawyers, and said he would judge her later. Some call it extraordinary resilience. Others find it incomprehensible. Even today, Erica still insists Omar was entirely responsible. Her story has never changed, and it seems there are a few people who believe her. Even Susie's mother publicly forgave her granddaughter and expressed hope of helping Erica. Omar was released earlier in 2010 after serving 9 years. He moved to Tuscany, worked as a barista, married, and started his own family, trying to build a new life. But controversy followed him. His visit to the victims' graves caused public outrage, and Erica sent him an angry letter accusing him of opportunism, proof that the animosity between them remains. More recently, Omar has found himself back in court. As of 2024, he's on trial for the alleged physical and psychological abuse of his ex-wife and daughter between 2019 and 2021, something that raises questions about whether he was truly rehabilitated. The case forced Italy to confront an uncomfortable truth, that evil isn't always out there. Sometimes it wears a familiar face. Sometimes the devil lives within the walls of a home, not with the foreign face the initial panic had imagined. This case challenged deep-seated prejudices and the quick rush to scapegoat outsiders. In the end, this story, with all its horror and complexity, leaves lingering questions about the darkness that can exist in ordinary people, about guilt, responsibility, and manipulation, and about the baffling power of forgiveness, even in the face of the unthinkable. If you like my content, please make sure you like, leave a comment, and subscribe to my channel. I'm also on Ko-fi and Buy Me a Coffee, and by the time you're watching this video, I should have the option where you can join my channel as a member. Thank you for watching.